Welcome to the Blue Check Shops interview series powered by Technician Find. Over the past 6 years, we've generated over 80,000 applications for 156 independent auto and diesel repair shops across the U.S. And I've noticed that the top shops that we work with who we're able to hire within a few weeks, they really do things differently. We can send a bunch of applications to one shop, they'll hire. We'll send a bunch of applications to another shop, and they won't hire. My goal with this series is to pull back the curtain and share the secrets of these top shops so that other independent shops can gain from this wisdom, hire great team members faster, and retain them longer. Today, I have Phil Webster with me. Phil owns Webster Tire and Auto Service in Teutopolis, Illinois. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Chris.
In addition to being an absentee owner who's built an amazing business and life for yourself and your family, you're also a business coach for ShopFix. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today is because you've done something that I've never seen before in the 6 years that I've been with Technician Find. After you worked with us and we were able to help you find a tech, you actually purchased the Technician Find service for one of your clients. They were stuck in a rut and you knew that they just needed this to push them out of that rut, and you were able to step in and hire the service for them. Let's talk about that a little bit. What was that situation all about?
It was about their mindset. They were a little scared to hire. They'd owned a shop for 20 years. It's a couple that runs a really nice little shop, wanting to grow, struggling finding technicians. And to say that mindset is a problem with that, if you plan it in your head, you can't find a tech. Their problem was also they were afraid. Are we not going to be able to pay them? Are we not going to have enough cars? Are we not going to have enough hours? Maybe a great tech doesn't want to work at our smaller shop or our family-owned shop. They also were stressed with time. I don't have time. What if I put an ad out and I get 100 applicants and I can't even go through them? That can be overwhelming. And sometimes we need a push to get over that edge and to face our fears. And they had just bought their building after leasing for 20 years. And so they didn't have as much cash as they did have in the bank before. And there was a lot of things playing into that where I knew if they got a technician or two, it would solve a lot of their problems. And guess what? Technicians is how we make money.
Right.
We don't sell any labor. If the job doesn't get done, we don't sell any parts if the job doesn't get done. So if you don't have a technician in your bay, billing hours, selling parts, you're not going to make money. And this particular couple, the husband was the technician and the service advisor. And if you're doing that, you can't do that well for very long, especially if you're growing car count and growing customers. And it's just not going to work for a long-term plan. And that's where we were having to get them technicians and to get them in a position where they could trust a technician to actually do work. They'd also had a technician that didn't complete a couple jobs right and cost them some money. And that goes into the mindset, and you may have to stop me if I get going on mindset and how we have to reprogram our subconscious, because
I'm right there with you, brother. Yeah.
It's our autopilot. Our subconscious mind is 80% of what controls us. And if we have wrong programming in our subconscious mind, our autopilot's going to take us to the place we don't even want to go. And you're not aware of it. You're going to end up at a place you don't want to be. We've all been there when you're driving down the road and you're going somewhere, your mind goes off, and all of a sudden you're pulling into the parking lot of that place. And the last sign you passed was 20 miles ago. And you're like, how'd I get here? Your subconscious mind drove you there. And
So true. That's perfect. We talk about mindset so much. You're a coach. You've talked to probably hundreds of other shop owners, and you can always tell when that mindset is a little bit off, and you can always tell where they're at in their journey. And before we hopped on the recording, we were talking about that and someone else that we both know in terms of mindsets. And one of the mindsets I always think about when you're hiring is you always want to have the mindset that you want your employees' lives to work inside and outside of the shop. And I actually got that from a good friend of mine, Sean Gilfill, who owns a couple of shops in New Jersey. And that's the way he runs his business, is he wants to make sure that, yes, you're providing the things that you need to provide, but you're providing training. You've got them good training. You've got them good equipment and everything. But what's going on outside of the shop? Are they bringing problems into the shop that are happening in the home? Are there financial issues? Are there things that aren't happening there? And that's another thing that needs to be addressed as well. So mindset, I'm right there with you. Mindset is so important. I think that's where it starts. And a lot of shops actually will help their employees work on mindset too. So but listening to books on Audible, there's a lot of good books that help with mindset, and they'll talk about it in the team meetings, and they'll do those kind of things as well. So what do you see the big problems are of the shops that you coach and what you've seen in your own business in terms of finding technicians?
So the first thing that I see in here is hey, I can't find good technicians. And so that constantly plants the seed in your mind. I can't find a technician. I can't find a technician.
Mm.
I just told a shop owner last night, I want you to find a picture, or if there was a technician you worked with in the past that was an excellent technician, print that picture off, pin it on your wall, pin it on your bathroom mirror, look at it every day and say, I'm going to find a technician like that. This
Yep.
is the guy I'm going to find. So trying to get him to reprogram his mindset on that. The next thing that I find when I say, okay, you're looking for a technician, show me your ad. Where are you putting it out there? Well, I haven't had time to put, you're not looking. You don't have an
Right.
ad somewhere like that.
Right.
And no, not urban people read the newspaper, but if you put an ad in the newspaper, you might have more opportunity to find a technician, because grandma might be reading the newspaper and go, my grandson's getting ready to graduate at the local college. I'm going to cut this out. And I've had that happen at my shop. It's been years ago, but if you're not putting an ad out there somewhere, no one's going to know what's going on.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, we're in another world. We're in the information world. You're going to have to be out there on the internet. There's multiple hiring sites, and you have to be on them every day. And this is where my next recommendation comes into is you got to get it out there, and then you got to spend the time. If you're not spending the time going after these people, if they're looking for a job, if they put their resume out there on sites, they're going to get phone calls more than likely. Yes, I think right now the economy's changing. There's lots going on. It's not as easy as it was 6 months or a year ago to get a job. Things have tightened up some, but it's still hard to find a great technician. I'm not saying it's not, but if you're not putting in the work, you're not going to find them. And so you have to be ready to strike when you see somebody you're interested in. And that's where I go about it very different. My personal cell phone number will be on my ads, and it will say call or text me anytime. Because when they're at work and they were trying to hustle all day to hit their hours, to make a good paycheck, and the systems in whatever shop they might be working in would not allow them, no matter how hard they work, showing up early, working late, skipping lunch, they still cannot hit the build hours they need to hit to make a good paycheck. That is when the iron's hot, and that's when you have to strike and get a hold of them and show them that you're the guy that they want to work for, and you're going to give them your cell phone number. You're going to be where they can communicate with you. And I have 30 plus people on my team right now. And every time I get in front of my people, I say, you've got my cell phone. You need anything, you call me, you text me. Even after you hire someone, you're still available. That is where I have my most success. Also, once I get their phone number, I save them right in my contacts. And the other thing that I do, I always ask them, hey, who is the best technician you worked with? And the number one reason that I found that technicians work at a shop is because who they work with. And so if I can hire the guy that they want to work with, it's likely they'll follow him to my shop if I can make that happen. Maybe they're a C-Tech or just greater than I want to hire right now, but the guy that's mentored them into becoming a technician, the guy that they aspire to be, I want to talk to him. So if they'll give me his name and number, and I don't care if I hire him or not, I still want to talk to him because they may be happy where they're at and I can learn from them. And we can improve the industry together just by having conversations. And
I love that.
when the more people, the more technicians that I talk to, I'm going to be needing a tech in 5 years. I'm going to be needing a tech in 2 years. And maybe the timing's not right now. I still always, even when I got a shop full of technicians, I'm always still trying to have conversations with other technicians.
Fantastic stuff. For everybody who's listening here, Phil just dropped a bunch of pearls of wisdom, a bunch of gold nuggets. I want to break those down a little bit because they're all really important. These are the types of things that happen inside of a shop that hires quickly. And I always tell shops, hey, we're going to market you. We're going to get you out there in front of lots and lots of techs. But after we deliver the applications, it's up to you. You've got to be able to do the things on your end to keep that going, to keep the techs engaged all the way through from the first conversation to when the toolbox drops. And these are the type of things that are important. So I want to pull this apart, Phil, because you've just showed a lot of wisdom. In the very beginning, you were talking about the technicians and where they're available, and you have to put marketing out in order to get in front of them. That is something we see all the time. We see somebody whose spouse sees the ad, or someone whose family member sees the ad, or somebody whose buddy sees the ad, and they're tired of hearing them complain about their shop, but the tech isn't doing anything to look, but the buddy hears them complaining all the time and says, hey, I just saw something on Facebook. You need to go see these folks. So absolutely, you have to be doing something in terms of advertising. The other thing that I always like to share this story, shop owners always come to me, GMs always come to me and they say, there are no techs. Techs are leaving the industry. And I say, well, here's the thing. The thing is, how many techs do you need? And they say 1, 2, even large MSOs. What do you need? 12 techs maybe? So are there 1 or 2 technicians in your area who are qualified, who are not currently working in your shop? The answer is always yes. And then I tell the bear story, and everybody's heard the bear story, right? The 2 buddies, and they're walking on a trail, and then they see this grizzly bear. And the one guy bends down and starts tying his shoe, and the other guy says, hey, why are you tying your shoes? We can't outrun a grizzly bear. They can run 35 miles an hour. And he goes, I don't have to outrun the grizzly bear. I just have to outrun you. So what I say is, look, you don't have to get every single technician. All you need is 1 or 2 or 3, however many you need to be fully staffed up. And in order to do that, you just have to look better than your competitors. You have to have a decent ad. You have to put it where the technicians are going to see it. And you have to be able to market yourself. And that's really what we do from our perspective. So that's the front end of this whole perspective. I love the part about asking everybody that you interview, who's the best technician that you've worked with. I love that. And I've seen that over and over again. One tech will leave, and then they'll pull their buddy with them, and they'll both end up going to the new shop. I've seen that over and over again. I always tell all of our clients when we're working with them, hey, don't chuck an application just because you don't think on paper they don't look qualified. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is if you're finding techs where you should be finding them, which is on social media, a lot of them may not have an up-to-date resume. They're not on the job boards constantly looking for new work. So if they just saw your ad on social media and it spurred a conversation, you don't want them to have to take the time and have that hoop of going, updating the resume, doing all that kind of stuff, and then starting the process from scratch. So talk to everyone. If someone has worked in a professional automotive repair business or a professional diesel repair business for at least a year, they know technicians that are probably the type of technicians you want to talk to.
Yeah. A real quick thing on
Please.
that I've noticed. I've been seeing resumes that have a gap in them, 3 to 8 years. And what I'm realizing is these technicians don't want the current job that they're at to know that they're out there looking. So they don't even put that on there, or they don't even update it since the last time so that it's not on there. So maybe they have actually been working somewhere for the last 3 to 5 years or whatever. And it looks like, well, this guy's been sitting on his couch. He really hasn't. So the only way you're going to get the real story is to get them in front of you and do the interviews.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect point. We go through a lot of effort to generate applications. I tear my hair out when they are chucking applications. And you also mentioned something else, and we call it building your deep bench. and storing those applications because, yes, the timing may not be right now, but the timing may be right down the road. Some of the most successful shops I have, actually, this just happened last week. I was on a call with my 20 group, and one of the shop owners in the group said, we just had a tech quit on me Friday. And so I reached out to him that afternoon and said, hey, do you need us to start your ads up again? And he said, nope, I've still got a bunch of applications from the last time we worked with you, so I'm just going to go down the list and call them. Music to my ears. That's exactly what we want, is because if you're putting the effort into generating these applications, you want to store them. Keep them anywhere. It can be low tech. Keep them in a manila envelope. If you're sharp and savvy like you can keep them in your phone, and then you can just fire off text messages when you think about it. I was at Apex. I was sitting there with one of our clients, a shop owner, who told me that what he does is every time something happens in his shop, he's got all the texts that he's ever talked to in his phone. And then he just pulls up the list. And if they're having a barbecue, he'll fire off some invites to, hey, come by, grab yourself some barbecue. Or when something's happened at the shop, if they're having a grand opening or a holiday party or some kind of an event, he'll just reach out to them. And then sometimes when he's at the airport or something, he'll just pull up the list and just fire off a text. Hey, how are things going? Haven't heard from you for a while. So
Yes.
all these types of things are how you continually keep in touch with that market.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I just wanted to mention, so we talked about building a bench, very important. I love that question. Who's the best tech that you've ever worked with? That one is great. And then the other thing that you had mentioned, which is very, very important, is, you know what? Sometimes it's not you, it's not your shop, it's just timing. And that's why we're really big fans of having lots of ads out there, because there's going to be that Friday afternoon when they've just had it. And we always see a spike in applications on Friday afternoons and on Sunday afternoons. We always see a spike. And Friday afternoon is because they just got finished with the week and they're just done with this shop. And then Sundays are, oh my gosh, I've got another week coming up with this shop. And you've got that pit in your stomach. So these are the times that you want to be in front of them. And you just want to make sure that when they're ready to go, you're ready there with an ad. You've done a lot of really cool things. In our conversations before, you freed yourself up from the day to day so that you can take on things like coaching, and you've got a really big team. Just tell me a little bit about how you grew and developed your team and how you retain your employees.
I've been in business 20 years now. I'm going to say the first 10 to 15 were lots of 20-hour days. I say I'm not a technician, but I'm a guy that can figure out and fix a car if I had to. And I started in car sales and worked my way into owning a shop because I worked for my father-in-law. He had a shop, still does have a shop half a mile down the road from me. So he's a competitor. And I started my car lot there and had plans of buying him out. What got me was I always, from the beginning, went, how do I set my business up? Like the McDonald's, you go to the McDonald's, you don't see the owner. I'm just owning a job if I have to be there every day to make money.
Right.
And how do I get to a point of not having to be there and it still makes money, the customer's still getting taken care of well, and my employees are still getting taken care of well. And so that's kind of how my mindset was going into business. That's why I wanted to do it. I wanted to support my family well, but I also wanted to see the industry of automotive get better, pay well to where we can retain technicians. I want them to be able to actually retire. I hate that word. I don't plan on retiring, but as time went on, things have to change. Your body can take so much or whatever, but I see a lot of the other trades where we lose technicians to these other trades because they pay better. And so that bothers me. A technician that's fixing a car should make a great living, should have retirement, should have benefits, should have insurance. And so I want to see that lifted up in the industry. And I watched way too many people that I worked next to as a tech that still today are getting close to 70 or in their 70s. They have no retirement other than Social Security, and Social Security is not going to be enough to sustain you a minimal, very, very minimal lifestyle. And they don't have insurance. And most guys that work in the automotive industry like working on cars. So maybe they can't change engines and transmissions anymore, but they can do diab. They don't have to abuse their body, so they can work later in life. And that also keeps us going too. But I just want to see a better life for people in the automotive industry. And that's why I'm part of Shop Fix coaching. And the reason I am involved in Shop Fix is because that's our mission, to stop the average small business from ruining the average family. And in automotive, oh my gosh, there's so many great families that own auto repair shops. And it's so fun to see. I've got some friends in the automotive industry where there's second, third, fourth, even one really good friend that is fifth generation automotive repair shop owner.
Wow.
I love watching that pass down. And I'm actually buying a shop in January, this third generation, and no one in the family wanted to take it on. I love being able to take that on, take that over. And it's in a small town again. I'm in the middle of cornfields in Illinois, a small town with only 2,300 people, but I'm getting to take on and keep technicians and raise the bar in that little town. They got two technicians there. It's a body shop and a repair shop. So there's both. I guess I'm actually buying two shops, but there's a technician on the auto repair side that's been there 48 years. He's retiring too. It's the only job he's ever had. Wow. And there's a body shop technician who's going to stay working for me. He's been there 42 years. It's the only job he's ever had. And when we think about hiring technicians, like, I'm interviewing those guys. The guy that's retiring, I've told him, I'm like, dude, I wish I could take my jump drive, plug it into you, download it, and plug it into a couple of these young guys.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on him to see if he'll stay, and probably have 12 under 25-year-old technicians carrying the majority of the build hours in my shops. And how I've trained them is because I have some older seasoned technicians that are training them. And that in itself has enabled me to quickly hire some young guys and get them into the field. And I hope that through how I'm running my shops and showing that they can make a good living in our industry, that when we talk in 15 years, they'll still be working for me and making a good living at my shops.
Absolutely. I was just about to wrap up, and you said something so important. I hear a lot of shop owners that are thinking, how do I motivate younger techs? And there's this generational thing. There's a lot of kind of friction between, my generation, I'm Gen Xer, and then, the younger generations, the millennials and younger, and Zs or whatever you want to call them. And there's a lot of questions about how you motivate this younger generation. And the flip side of that is also having some kind of an apprenticeship program so you can bring in younger techs and you can bring them along and you can give them a career path. A lot of the shops that I work with are smaller shops and they don't really have that built up yet. So can you say just a little bit about that? How have you built up that apprenticeship program so you can bring in younger technicians, and how do you motivate those younger technicians? Because they're not really motivated by the kind of stuff that my generation has been motivated by.
So I'm going to tell a story to do that. And
please,
this goes back 3 or 4 years ago. My service advisors were getting very frustrated because we had several green techs. Actually, this was about 3 years ago because it was right going into buying my second shop, and my two best technicians quit. And they had been with me, both of them had been with me 7 years. When the one decided to go, the other decided to go. So that, hey, the guy I like working with the last 7 years is not going to be here. I'm going to start looking for a job. And so that happened. And at that time I had 3 or 4 technicians. So my technicians were gone, and I'm having to hire. And what wound up happening was I called a friend of mine who's a technician for UPS and said, so he works all night because the UPS trucks are in at night. He works on them. He used to work for me. And I just said, hey, I need you to come in. We've got cars backed up that my techs can't diag. Like we had like 15 cars sitting there. My service advisors were going, we can't lie to the customer. We can't tell them. And I said, I don't want you to lie to the customer. But anyhow, I called him and said, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm working out of my garage during the day because he's just the type of guy that likes to work all the time. And he had 2 young twins. He's like, they have some health issues. I got to make some money. And so I'm doing day work out of my garage, but you want me to come work for you? I'll come to work every day. And I said, well, what I need from you is, first of all, to get these 15 cars we got sitting here that we got angry customers about, diag right, fixed, so we can get them out of our hair and make happy customers. And then I want you to go through and I want you to work and train every technician I hire. And so that's how I've done it at Shop 1. And we now have about 10 technicians there. And he's one of them. And he does very little work. But I had to commit. And whether this is high in your area or not, I had to commit to paying him $50 an hour, clock time. And that can be hard to make up. But over the last 2 years, he's trained up green technicians, and he has been my key in keeping them there to develop them. And as I'm buying this new shop, one of them was wanting to go to that new shop, to the other shop, which is only 12 miles away. He actually lives closer to it. But he said, now there's a couple other guys that want to go. If Matt's staying here, I want to stay and work with Matt and learn all I can from him. And I'm like, well, my plan is that Matt may be starting to travel to each shop and not just be here. So he's like, well, if he's going to be here the most, that's where I want to be, because I'm learning a lot from him that's helping me get billed hours. Do have to sell these technicians on how they're going to make money. You can do it by flat rate. However, you have to do it to have a pay plan that motivates them. Everybody's not motivated by money. Yes. And I train them all the time. Hey, money's not a bad thing. It's just a tool to get what you need to get. That is our commodity in this country. We don't trade very much anymore. We don't trade eggs. You know what I'm saying? So you figure out, here's how you can get the most dollars. If the shop's making money, I want you to make more money. And when I'm not there every day motivating them by going, hey, come on, I need you to get this car done, I can't be in 3 shops at the same time doing that. And so motivating them through pay is how it has to happen. And yes, I got good benefits. I've got great time off to where they're earning that time off quickly. One of my shops is open on Saturdays. It drives me nuts, but most of my shops are going to be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So you have every weekend off to spend with your family, and you can earn up to, I think we're up to 4 weeks on vacation time. The first year you start with me, I'm given 2 weeks vacation. So 2 weeks vacation plus 3 paid sick days, however you want to call it. So in the first year, you're earning a lot of time off. And as you stay longer, you're going to get more. And then I also do other programs, tech training and service advisor training, which is another area you can't forget when you're hiring techs. Techs want a good service advisor. If there's an issue, can get the right parts if that's the case, or can solve the customer's problem. Technicians know they don't want to be the service advisor, but they got to have a good service advisor, or if their life is going to be trouble, not only just when it comes to efficiency, but they're going to have to be trying to do the service advisor job as well as techie. And for me, that just doesn't work. So,
absolutely. Again, all these gold nuggets, this is just really, really solid gold. I wanted to really focus in on one of the issues, which actually breaks out to 3. everything that you said was really important. When I first got into this industry back in 2017, I didn't know anything about the industry. I did a presentation for 10 automotive repair shop owners, ended up getting a bunch of them as clients, and then they asked me to sit on the board of the 20 group. So I started going every week to the 20 group to learn about the industry. So this very generous group of shop owners took me in, they taught me about the industry, and I figured out that they really needed help finding techs. So I said, I don't know anything about technicians. I don't know what they think. I don't know even really what they do. I know they fix cars. And I said, can I talk to your top 2 techs? So I went around to all of the shops in the 20 group, all the owners, and I said, can I have 7 minutes with your top 2 techs? I won't take them out of production for very long. I just want to ask them a bunch of questions because I want to know what they think. What's important to them? What do they like in a job? What do they like in an ad? What do they call BS on when they see it in an ad? I wanted to know these things so we could figure it out. And since then, I've talked to hundreds of techs. I've been at conferences and talked to techs. I've bought a bunch of beers at conferences. I've poked my head into trainings. I've talked to techs on the phone that call and are applying to jobs. And I've heard hundreds of things that technicians want. And if you boil that all down into 3 things, number 1 is they want growth. They want opportunities for growth. They want development, to learn, to train. They want opportunities to progress in the industry. The second thing is respect. They want to be respected to their contribution to the team, to the overall group. And that's, can be as simple as one-on-one communications. It can be as simple as acknowledgement, open door policies, those types of things. And the other thing is compensation. And you notice how compensation is the third thing I mentioned, because it's a lot of times, it's important. I always tell a shop, you've got to be competitive with your pay and your benefits, but it's not always the prime motivator. And, I can see, Phil, you understand this. There's situations I've seen techs leave a dealer and go to an independent because the culture was so much better and they took a small cut in pay in order to do that. But what Phil just talked about is he hit on all 3 of those things. And I think that's what a shop that hires faster, a shop that attracts good talent, a shop that retains good talent, they're hitting on all 3 of those pillars, and they're making sure that their employees' lives are working inside and outside of the shop. So that's magnificent. I love this. I just have 2 more things. If you can hang on with me, 2 more things. One is, if someone is considering coaching, if someone owns a shop, they're kind of stuck, they're feeling like they want to run out in the middle of traffic because they can't get their business moving the direction they want to go, what are some things that would be a trigger to them that they should consider coaching?
All the things you just said, if you're stuck, if you're feeling overwhelmed, all those kind of things. But I guess not to be fearful or skeptical of coaching, or it's just like mental health. We should not look down on somebody that's seeking out counseling or mental health help. When you think of the greatest sports star that guess how many coaches they have? Getting an outside view on your business will help you reach goals maybe that you never even thought were possible, because someone else looking at your business, your operation, and most of the time you are the biggest blockade for your shop to grow, your business to grow. And for a coach to point that out to you, to maybe try something just a little different. Or a lot of times with shop owners, you're in the weeds so much for so long that you didn't even notice that there's weeds 3 foot tall in your parking lot.
Right.
And if you don't notice those weeds, you're not going to notice the other weeds that are throughout your business. And the other thing that I love about Shop Fix, we do 4 conferences a year. So every 90 days, you're getting a reset, things to go back and work on at your shop. The biggest thing that you have to work on in shop owning is this guy in the mirror. And I highly recommend doing that through reading. I hate reading. I can't sit down and read, but I can pull books off this shelf behind me that I've read, because 15, 20 years ago when I was getting started in business and talking to other business owners, the most successful ones every single time that I talked to in different industries and whatever, what they all did was read books and work on themselves, because you are the ceiling for your business. If you're not growing, your business is not growing. And that's what getting outside coaching will do for you. It will help you grow your ceiling and is going to allow the people under you to grow as well. And so if you're thinking about coaching, not thinking about coaching, get coaching. And the first one may not be a good fit. And you don't have to spend 50, 60, or $100,000. There's some other type coaches out there, and I'm going to throw this out there because I can tell you in 2017, my back was against the wall. I was down to one technician who's still with me, and he was not a A-level technician. He was a tire and brake guy, but I had a 12-bay shop, and it was me and him. I had no service advisor. Things got really tight and crazy at the end of 2016 in the presidential election and stuff, but this guy was not being a good leader, and I had to rebuild my shop starting right then. And that's when I started really looking at coaching. Yeah. I mean, it led me to pay a company around $250,000 in 6 months, and you don't have to do that. I'm still reaping some benefits from that company, but I did not have to do that. And so as you're looking for a coaching company, I do highly recommend find one that is reasonably priced. You don't have to spend, I know some of them you have to spend $50,000 or $60,000, and you should not have to do that to get started with. I'm not trying to sell ShopFix. I do believe ShopFix is great. There are some other great coaching companies out there as well, but I think we can get coaching for a reasonable price. And whatever coaching you get, it should at minimum double your profits.
I love that. A great rule of thumb. And leaders are readers. I always think about that, very much so. And I also think about the advice Tony Robbins has about coaching as well. He talks a lot about all the stars have coaches and really making sure that you're staying on track and you're staying accountable, because you always can't see what's right in front of you. And that's so true. So let's finish up with something that's just kind of interesting. I always like to do this. Just share an interesting, a sad or a funny story about hiring, an interview situation that you've had, or just something that kind of shocked you.
A shocking one. I hired a car sales guy one time that I didn't know he was being investigated by the FBI for some not very good stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And so anyhow, and it turned out that same stuff came about with a customer in my business, and it nearly turned into a pretty bad lawsuit. And so therefore we now have a process that Phil likes to strike when the iron's hot. But every time I go about that, I say, okay, wait a minute. We do have to do a background check. We do have to call references. We do have to do a social media dig. And I have a hiring company that I do the background checks with and stuff. But we also do our own digging of jumping on didyoudishy.com. Hey, the other thing, Google knows a lot. We Google their name, but that put me in a very awkward position when I got the phone call saying, hey, this employee of yours tried trading a discount on a car for favors. And yes. Anyhow.
Yes. Do your background checks and your due diligence.
Yes.
We just worked with a client last month, and she did background due diligence on a tech that they were about to hire. And she was good at doing that background and due diligence because she'd been in the mortgage industry and had done some diligence there. She found out that this individual was just out of prison, and he was in prison because he and one of his coworkers conspired to kill another shop owner, his previous shop owner. Yes. So that's the kind of thing. So she headed that off at the pass because she did her own due diligence and background checks. So, I mean, and I've heard variations of that story many times. So,
yes. And
yeah,
I'm also one for second chances, but there's some times where the risk is not worth the reward. So I do have one of my managers was a drug addict and he's worked for me 8 years, and she made the decision he was not going to live that life and has stuck
Outstanding.
to it. So don't think that I'm just not hiring someone. Um, we all want to follow the leader with the limp. So we've all been through stuff, but there's
Absolutely.
certain risks that's not worth the reward. So anyhow, yeah, due diligence. Yeah.
Yeah, very much. Well, Phil, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for the referrals that you've given to Technician Find. Much, much appreciated. And if you'd like to get in touch with Phil, I can help you do that. Take his advice, put it to work. We all need you out there servicing vehicles and doing a good job in the industry.
Chris, thank you. And thank you for putting in front of me through Technician Find some 30-year veteran techs that I had not been able to get in front of myself. So appreciate you, and thanks for having me.
Outstanding. Thanks.